All praises unto our power, Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham Warakwadash. Peace, blessings, much respect to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, on down to the rest of the elders that rule well within Israel. Salutations to the hopeful elect throughout the four corners of this whole entire earth, no matter where, whom they may be, or what they may look like, pushing out this purified truth to the rest of the church who believe as well. You men who may not be teachers or prophets, you women, sons and daughters also. The water to Yahweh Shai, because without him enduring and going to that cross for the nation of Israel, and the nation of Israel alone, of course, none of this would even be possible whatsoever. Let's start this lesson off in Isaiah chapter 49 and verse 4. Then I said, I have labored in vain. I have spent my strength for nothing and in vain. Yet surely my judgment is with the Lord Yahweh, and my work with my power. We feel like we're laboring in vain sometimes. It's just a part of the flesh. It's a condition that comes with the battle. That comes from the flesh. Remember, we are at war in this ministry. We are in a spiritual battle. Our spirit is warring against our flesh. They're literally contrary one towards another. The spirit is one way, the flesh is another way. But we're conjoined with both of them. So it can create a lot of doubt at times, and can create a lot of unsurety in terms of, if your labor is being used up for nothing, if your labor is actually beneficial. And guess what? We know it is, but the flesh will try to have you thinking differently. That is a part of the battle. Our flesh alone is a demon. And then on top of that, we're being tempted by demons, and demons are so smart. They're so good at what they do that they can come into your mind and have you feeling like it's just you talking to yourself. Okay? We're not doing this for nothing. Even if you're doing the same thing you were doing last week and the week before and the week before and the week before, you live a lifestyle that's a cycle. You go out and do the work, you go to work, you go home. You might be the type to step out for a drink every now and again or whatever, but we're living in this cycle, this repetitive cycle of insanity. And it's easy for the flesh to ponder and say, is this for nothing? But it's not for nothing at all. Okay? That's how deep this fight goes. Satan and his legion of demons, his army of demons, they know exactly how to hit someone where it hurts. And you have to believe that these demons are actually stronger than we are. Us on our own, we have no fighting chance to win against a demon. But if the Lord is our strength, if the Lord is our power and our guide, then we're okay. A lot of people in this society, they're not going through the mental fights that we're going through because they just give in to certain thoughts that they have. We get certain thoughts like any average man or woman, but the difference is we have to fight against those thoughts. We're not immune to evil thoughts. We're not immune to doubt. We're not immune to feeling useless, so to speak. But it just comes with the flesh, because in this world, people can do things and instantly receive some reward or some gratification from people. It seems like in this world, the accolades come quick. But being in this ministry, it's like a thankless position that we're placed in, because a lot of people just don't care. And people are not built to be rejected and ignored on a day-by-day basis. But we have to go through that because, again, that's a part of the condition of the battle. Everything possible that we could think of is coming against us. If our own self, if our own flesh fights against us, why is anything else too good to fight against us? So let's read Isaiah 49:4 again. Then I said, I have labored in vain. Why? Because we're laboring and it's a thankless job. I have spent my strength for naught, and it takes strength to go and do this ministry. It takes strength to do these lessons. And in vain, yet surely my judgment is with the Lord, and my work with my power. And now said the Lord that formed me from the womb to be his servant, to bring Jacob again to him, though Israel be not gathered. Yet shall I be glorious in the eyes of the Lord, and my power shall be my strength. So the Lord is our strength when it seems like we're used up, when we feel like the whole world's just been kicking our ass. Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushai gives us our strength. And how does he do that? Praying, doing these lessons, reading, keeping a humble mind, keeping that fear upon you. Just like if you have an Xbox or you might have a PlayStation or something, if it's not plugged into a power source, it's not going to work. We have to remain plugged into our power source or we're not going to work. Reading the Bible, that's a form of you being plugged into the power. Doing lessons, whether it's on the street or throughout the week, this is a form of us being plugged in to our power. And there's going to be days that we get weak, but as long as we're plugged in, as long as the Lord has favor upon us, there's nothing that's going to change the Lord's favor upon us. Let's go to verse 6 here. And he said, it is a light thing that thou shouldest be my servant, to raise up the tribes of Jacob, and to restore the preserved of Israel. I will also give thee for a light to the Gentiles, that thou mayest be my salvation unto the end of the world. So the Lord told Isaiah, it is a light thing that we should be his servants. So yes, indeed, it is a light thing. But what gets in between that? Our flesh. It's our flesh that burdens us. It's our flesh that weighs down upon us, that gets in the way sometimes. But that just shows our mortality. It also shows that we are indeed in a fight. Okay? What would a fight be if your opponent doesn't even fight back? Let's touch on 2nd Esdras, chapter 14, and verse 14. Let go from thee mortal thoughts, cast away the burdens of man. Put off now the weak nature. So it's a burden being in this flesh. Many burdens come with being in this flesh. But the battle is to try as much as possible to cast off the ways of the flesh. Seeing that we are in our flesh, we're not going to completely cast away the flesh, because the flesh is alive. The flesh, it seems like, has a mind of its own. But it's your spirit that tries to tell the flesh, like, no, we're doing this. And the flesh is like, nah, I'm not really feeling that. But the spirit is like, no, regardless of what you feel like, this is what needs to be done. And then the flesh will try to make it like, well, we can just do it later. The spirit's like, no, we can do it now. That's the battle, man. We're literally in a fight in this ministry with ourselves, first and foremost, before anybody else. Before Esau, before any other nation, before the wicked of our people, before Satan himself. The fight starts with who? Ourselves. because it's ourselves that can give in to the doubt. It's ourselves that can give in and throw in the towel and say, I'm not doing this no more. That comes from our own flesh. Okay? That's why we have to learn, and every day is a learning process, but we have to learn to set those thoughts to the side. Now, setting them to the side doesn't mean you delete it. Notice I said you set them to the side. You can't really cast away all the ways of the flesh right now, because the flesh is alive. The flesh is constantly trying to find ways to do what it wants to do. But the spirit and the things that we do that pertain to the spirit is really contrary to the flesh. The flesh doesn't want to be disliked. The flesh doesn't want to be, unconsidered. The flesh doesn't want to be a loser. But these are things that the spirit has to talk to the flesh in order for us to remain in this fight. Because again, it's one thing against another. The flesh is contrary to our spirit. And set aside the thoughts that are most heavy unto thee. Your most heavy thought, maybe you haven't spoken these things, maybe you have. But whatever that thought may be, you have to set that to the side. And one of the greatest ways of setting it to the side is not focusing on things that irritate you. You're not focused on things that kind of bring ease to your mind. You're not focused on salvation. And then you might say, well, actually, I am focused on salvation, but I still have these thoughts that come to my mind. Well, these thoughts are going to be there. They're going to come and show up at the least opportune time. The most inconvenient times, it seems like negativity can appear and you ponder and you dwell on it. But the importance of knowing that we actually have a fighting chance because the Lord has given us, our shield of salvation. He's given us the two-edged sword. He's given us, armor. He's given us a strong tower. He's given us everything we need in this fight. And sometimes, every now and again, you might have to unplug. And when I say unplug, don't take me wrong. There are no breaks in this truth. But sometimes you might have to unplug. Maybe you've been doing your videos, you've been praying, you've been doing what you need to do, but you still feel a sense of heaviness. Maybe you should try hitting the gym for a little bit. Maybe you want to go, if you live by a beach, go to a beach, go look at the water, go to a lake, play a video game, go and, go to some nice fancy restaurant or something. Sometimes you might have to unplug, but not unplug for good, but unplug in the same sense as if you had a cell phone and it's charged up and you unplug it, it's not dead, but over time the power is dwindling. So eventually you will have to plug back in. So every now and again, you might have to unplug and, go do something that feeds the flesh a little bit, just to kind of tell your flesh, okay, shut up. I did what you wanted. Now it's time for me to do what I want. Speaking of the spirit. All right. And set aside the thoughts that are most heavy unto thee, and haste thee to flee from these times. And we're fleeing from these times by our actions, our belief. Us holding on, it's not a physical holding on. Us holding on is spiritual. Us setting aside heavy thoughts is a part of us holding on. It's a part of us remaining plugged in. Okay? And we have to always ponder on the reward that's coming, even when it gets tough, even when the going gets rough, and that can happen quite often. But just understand that Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai knows every single feeling that we feel because he made us feel it. It was already written for us to go through certain things and to experience certain things. Ecclesiasticus chapter 26 and verse 4. Whether a man be rich or poor, if he have a good heart toward the Lord, he shall at all times rejoice with a cheerful countenance. So whether you're rich or poor, if you have a good heart toward the Lord, you'll always rejoice. And it will show in your countenance. But then you're going to have days you're just not as charged up as you might be. You might not be as rejoiceful or hopeful as you would normally be, because you're going to have days you're just not you're not on it like you normally are. Whether a man be rich or poor, if you have a good heart toward the Lord, he shall at all times rejoice with a cheerful countenance. So this shows you right now, it has nothing to do with money that brings happiness. Because if you're rich or you're poor, if you have your mind toward the Lord, you're gonna be cheerful. You're gonna be happy. It's when we set aside our mind on heavy things that aren't really beneficial, things that the flesh ponders on. These things bring you down, because just like the earth is earthly, the earth brings you down. It's like a gravitational pull when you're focused on your flesh. When you think of things of the spirit, there's a sense of freedom. There's a sense of happiness and joy. Those who feel like this is the only life they have to live, those who feel like chasing money is the key to happiness, those who feel like having money is how you get women, these are all people who are miserable every day. We who are the believers, we're not miserable every day to an extent of, being suicidal or wanting to throw in the towel. We're miserable every day because we want better, but we're still happy and we have joy in our heart because we understand this is all with a purpose. And we're all going through something. And just because one man goes through it, another man may go through it differently because the Lord made us different. One man may have weaknesses in his flesh that another brother may not have. So they're affected differently, but nevertheless, your fight is your fight. My fight is my fight. And the Lord in particularly customized our battles. Okay. And that's how you know it has to be a good fight, because the Lord knows exactly how to hit you where it hurts. Okay. But as long as we keep our mind on positive things, we keep our mind on this truth, when the thoughts do come, they're not going to overthrow you, because the thoughts are going to come. Let's not play games and pretend that when you come into this truth, you turn into this fairy boy, you become mistakeless. You don't make mistakes anymore. You're no longer sinning. Now you know how to master your emotions better than anybody who's ever mastered their emotions. And we're still men and women. We're still people in the flesh, just like anybody else. What differentiates us from everybody else, though, is the fact that we have the Lord as our strength, and the things that we go through are actually coming with a reward. There's a cause behind it. Okay? So we have to learn through these afflictions to take it cheerfully. But when you're going through things back to back, you might have a week or a couple weeks or a whole month, it seems like things just ain't working out. It's a little harder to rejoice. It's a little harder to keep a cheerful countenance. And I understand that. Okay? And these days will happen. Let's touch on Ecclesiasticus chapter 2 and verse 4. Whatsoever is brought upon thee, take cheerfully and be patient when thou art changed to a low estate. So whatever it may be, you have to take it cheerfully. Whether it's a whole bunch of evil thoughts bombarding you at the same time, people giving you a hard time, your position in life, okay? You feeling like your videos or your lessons aren't making a difference. Whatever we're going through, whatever we feel like is too much, we have to learn to take it cheerfully, because if you have a good heart toward the Lord, if your mind is on Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai at all times, the comfort is there, because now you know, okay, it's the Lord doing this. But then Satan may say, see, it's the Lord doing it to you because he hates you. Why you want to serve him? You got to fight all those kind of thoughts, because those evil thoughts don't go away. They're going to always be there as long as we're in this flesh. They're always going to be there. They're never going to completely leave. But as long as we're charged up, as long as we're doing what we're supposed to do and being connected to the source, when we are at a lower state, it'll be a lot easier to take it cheerfully than someone who's not watching videos, they're not making videos, they're not praying, you know, their faith is lacking. You have to understand, we were not called into this truth to have everything go our way all the time. We are called into this truth to be tested. Okay, we're called into this truth to go through trials. We're almost like a man who just stays in the gym all day, okay, working out resistance training. We're constantly working out, being in this ministry. We're constantly being afflicted and tested. But the thing is, not all the afflictions and tests come in such a heavy matter to where it's really throwing you off. But other tests and afflictions can do so. Other tests and afflictions may actually have you stagger. Just like a boxer may take a couple blows that don't really faze him. And a lot of those blows are more common. But there may be just certain blows, it make him stagger. Like, damn, that'll knock the saliva out of my mouth. Damn, that done made me lose my footing. Now I got to get my footing back right. Okay? Every day is a fight, but not every day is the fight so intense. Whatsoever is brought upon thee, take cheerfully and be patient when thou art changed to a lower state. For gold, which we are that gold, is tried in the fire, and acceptable men in the furnace of adversity. So we're going through the furnace of adversity, and Yahweh Shai is turning up that fire. Sometimes he'll turn it down, but he's the one fanning the flames. Okay? And remember what he went through. That's fair. He had to go through the fire. So we have to go through the fire too. Okay? Understand, we're not in our perfection yet. There's going to be days you fall short. There's going to be days you feel little. But that comes with, you know, symptoms of the battle. And it shows you that you are definitely in a battle. And don't be ashamed to admit that you are in this truth, fighting for the Lord. Let's close it with this here. Sirach chapter 4 and verse 20. Observe the opportunity and beware of evil. Being in this ministry, you actually have an opportunity like no one else on earth. Beware of evil, and that includes evil thoughts. Not just the evil that's around you, but the evil that's within you. And be not ashamed when it concerneth thy soul. This ministry concerns our soul. This ministry pertains to our salvation. So we shouldn't be ashamed. Yeah, it gets hard. But there's times it's going to get so hard, you feel spiritually handicapped. And it might last you a couple hours. It might last you a whole day. It might last you a few days where you just feel messed up. But understand, you should never feel ashamed when it concerns your soul. Okay? For there is a shame that bringeth sin, and there is a shame which is glory and grace. And we're going through our humility to receive glory and grace. Others are going to go through their humility because they've been living wrongfully. Okay? In this world, in this life, we're all going to suffer some type of shame. But the purpose of how you suffer your shame is really what matters. We're suffering with the purpose. We're suffering with their reward coming. Okay? And as we keep on doing these lessons and fighting and holding on, we are going to increase not only in our spirit, but money is being placed in our spiritual bank accounts. So when eternity starts, we'll have an abundance, aka an infinite amount of wealth. Proverbs 13:11. Wealth gotten by vanity shall be diminished, but he that gathereth by labor shall increase. And the real labor is being in this ministry. We're doing this work and our wealth is being stacked up. Our wealth is increasing. It's like every day that goes by, that's like $1 trillion in the bank. Another day goes by, you done fought for the Lord. That's like another trillion thrown up in savings, man. Okay? Hope deferred maketh the heart sick, but when the desire cometh, it is a tree of life. So it's the hope that's in us that could also bring heavy thoughts. Because the fact that we have expectations, the fact that we want better, but we're not necessarily getting what we expect at the moment, it can cause us to be sick in the mind. That's why you'll hear brothers say, man, they're sick and tired of this kingdom. You know, the mind is weighed down constantly. That's why we have to learn a balance. You know, there's days I might have to unplug, so to speak, and just get on a video game. I might have to unplug for a while and just look up some folly. Other times I might have to actually get into the scriptures and pray and do all these other things for me to actually keep a balance. But we have to learn ourselves. We have to learn what works for us in righteousness so that we don't stumble and fall off. We're still seeking out our salvation, but we haven't received it yet. But don't get sick and tired of waiting to the point where you throw in the towel, because there is labor that's, you know, that's to be done, and our wealth through our labor is constantly being stacked up and stacked up and stacked up. Because you got to remember, we're going to live for an eternity. So we're going to need an eternity amount of wealth. So every day that goes by, so much money is being invested in our savings account that we can't touch right now. But just picture it like that. Every day that goes by, you in this ministry, that's like $1 trillion put up in the iron vault. And no one can take that from you but the Lord himself. So hope deferred maketh the heart sick, but when a desire cometh, it is a tree of life. So imagine that, you know, we go through all these disappointments, these evil thoughts go through our minds sometimes. And then eventually the time comes where all of our heart's desires get met. What a feeling that will be, especially being someone who's used to being told no, someone who's used to being rejected, someone who's used to not having what he needs all the time. And then to finally get everything that your heart desires one day. It's coming. Our reward is coming. So I'm going to wrap it up. Lord willing, this was simple and edifying. We all go through things, man. We all go through spiritual battles in this ministry. We all wrestle with good and evil. Even those outside the truth are wrestling with spirits. But the thing is, we understand what's going on. We understand the purpose. And it's not done in vain. Our strength is not being used up, so to speak, in vain. So Lord willing, this lesson, it was simple and it was edifying. And I'm going to give all thanks and praises unto our power, Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham Wa Rakak Wadash. Until next time, Lord willing, Shalom.